EURAXESS Smart Talks for Talents, your personal guide to research careers, innovation, and entrepreneurship. Hi, I'm Daria, a senior expert of the EURAXESS National Contact Point in Latvia.
And I'm Jovan, a teaching and research assistant from Serbia, and you're listening to EURAXESS Smart Talks.
Welcome to today's episode titled From Science to Startup Inside Information. The ideal startup needs at least 3 people: a geek, a financial wizard, and a generalist manager, said Nobel Prize winner Professor Shechtman, who will be our guest later on in this episode. So, what is the ideal scientific startup entrepreneurship?
Scientific startup entrepreneurship is a career path in which a scientific finding, as a result of Ph.D., postdocs, or research in later career stages in any area, is transformed into an innovative product or service, which is then validated and improved by early adopters, brought to the market, and then continuously scaled up in terms of product or service quality and coverage. Scientific entrepreneurship is clearly recognized as one of the pathways for bridging the gaps between research, innovation, and the market. Let us start this topic smart with those who can explain. Our first guest is Professor Milan Zdravkovic. Professor Zdravkovic is an associate professor and leading researcher at the University of Niš.
He has worked as expert for evaluation and mentoring of startups in Scientific Technology Park Belgrade. He is a coordinator of the Serbian National EURAXESS Network. Milan is the leader of the Scientific Startup Entrepreneurship Hub in the EURAXESS Hub project. So, hi Milan, thank you very much for coming. The Scientific Startup Entrepreneurship in the EURAXESS Hubs pilot focuses on entrepreneurship for researchers. And why is this an important area for EURAXESS to focus on?
Hello, Daria. Hello, Jovan. Thanks for inviting me to your podcast. I mean, it's important because it's career as any other for researchers. But then again, I mean, we have to say that when you think about the scientific entrepreneurship, when you look at the startup ecosystem, when you have in mind that startup is something that is being disruptive, that is being innovative, that is being completely new, where else can you find new things unless in scientific work? So if you think that way, basically the best, let's say, environment where you could look for future startup champions is academia, is actually research landscape. So this is why this career is really prospective with the blooming and of the startup scene in the world in the past years, and especially with all the challenges that have been brought by, for example, COVID pandemics, and the response of academia and researchers and startup ecosystem towards solution of many issues within the pandemics. You know, this becomes really and truly hot topic. Going back to EURAXESS is all about supporting research careers. So if we look for the roots of scientific entrepreneurship, we should probably go into looking into engineering sciences, where that becomes possible. You know, scientific method actually, which is based on it's quite rigid. It's based on the hypothesis. It's based on experiments. It's based on validation. It's based on more experienced, which you implement in order to prove some hypothesis and to make it new scientific knowledge. This is how scientific knowledge becomes a common knowledge. This is something that is very similar to the path of the startups, of the entrepreneurs, you know, because the startups are, when comparing to the conventional entrepreneurship, for example, the startups are not something that are not, let's say, companies or enterprises which are looking far in the future. When you're having an enterprise, you want to get some funding and you build some business plan 5-year long, and then you go to banks and you ask for loans and things like that. I mean, you're looking for investors, but your business is basically based on how well you know about the future, how convinced you are that your plans will be successful. Startups startup is completely opposite of that. In startup, you build hypotheses, and then you experiment with customers. And then if this experiment goes wrong, then you pivot, then you change your direction. And you change it very fast and very often. Sometimes even there are examples, especially in fintech, there are examples of startups which are pivoting many times during 1 month, in order to find, while communicating with the early adopters of their own product and processing their feedback. The point is not to go rigidly towards your vision, your mission, your expectations from our product, but to look into the customers. And this is why it's called experiment, because you don't know how it's going to work. Why you don't know? Because it's something new. Startup is a company that produces something new and something completely innovative. So basically, you don't have competition. So you cannot look in other backyard and see how they work. So you try to replicate that. No, instead of that, you're basically doing something completely new, and this is why you cannot bring any guarantees. And this is what is very similar to how science works. And the choice of startup careers for the scientists in that sense, it's completely natural.
Can you tell us about the toolkit your work package and the EURAXESS Hubs project has developed for implementing EURAXESS Startup Hubs?
Toolkit is, let's say, a set of web pages. It's content. It's online content, basically. Online content and some of the tools. One version will be going to be published on EURAXESS Jobs portal, and another, which is for EURAXESS centers, will be published on EURAXESS External. But this is not our topic. But what you're going to find in this toolkit, open to researchers, let's say, because they are our main target group, you will find, let's say, ebook about the beginnings, introduction to scientific entrepreneurship, introducing some of new concepts in so-called lean startup theory, set up by one very popular entrepreneur and book author, Eric Ries, who is basically evangelist of this new lean startup philosophy. So we are trying to introduce this new philosophy into scientific entrepreneurship and to somehow make it fit with those even still rigid infrastructures such as technology transfer centers and other supporting infrastructures for startups in academia. Then you have, for example, one exhaustive section on the startup ecosystem, which is quite important for us, because we want to show that startup is collaborative thing. Even if the idea is yours, even if you are fully protected your intellectual property, you're still working in one ecosystem, and you should know how to bring the best out of this ecosystem and how to use it for your benefit, but also how to return back and how to become a member of community, because community is always giving back to you. In this case, this is especially important. This story about the ecosystem is even more important for the EURAXESS centers, because if you want to build those local collaborations, you're looking at this. You're looking at the types of the organizations in ecosystem. You're learning about which type of the organization can bring which benefits into your, let's say, future hub, for example, if you want to build one. Then we have a tool for searching online resources, and we collected and created more than 400 online resources for the different, it's web pages, online tools, online applications, and things like that. For example, online courses, many different types of resources. More than 95% of those are available for free. Some are not, but of course some trial versions are available, so we put them in because we still believe that even those trial versions can be helpful to researchers when we're talking about online tools. Then we have, let's say, a set of articles in 4 different top segments. These are the pillars of the online toolkit. One is, let's say, innovation support in academia. So the articles about what kind of structures you can find in academia which can support you and what you can expect from them. Then another is training, entrepreneurship training. We find this quite important because we see that rise and uptake of entrepreneurship training, especially in engineering school, is being increasing every day. Then we have collaborations. So what kind of collaborations, how to mostly how to establish the collaborations and what kind of benefits can you expect, but also followed by the examples of good practice where you can learn really a lot. And the fourth, it's diversity and inclusion, because currently startups, unfortunately, are the male playground. And this is quite evident when you look at the data. And this is something that we found as very, very important. It's not only related to establishing gender balance, but also other, let's say, groups that are kind of not represented the best, and there are doubts that they are not offer equal opportunities in order to succeed. So this we find very important, and we have also set of articles and good practice in this part. Not only scientific entrepreneurship, but also lean startup concepts, and to learn about, as I talked before, something that's very specific to the start, to how startup works, especially when comparing to the other forms of conventional entrepreneurship. And we were going to have IPD from Israel working on this, because they have huge network of really, truly startup champions and really organizations that truly excel in turning the innovation into very successful product or a service. So the second part is, let's say, more related to testimonials and case studies, and that's going to be organized by University of Luxembourg. And both of those webinars will take place quite soon. The first one in the beginning of May. I don't know if this podcast will be published before or after that. And the second training will be organized, I think, in beginning of July, but I'm not sure about this. But the network and everyone will be informed about this. And these trainings are dedicated to EURAXESS centers, not for research. Although, of course, researchers can participate. The second part, let's say, activity, which is aiming directly at researchers and which we really, truly hope to have a really great impact, is something that we call EURAXESS Startup Tour. It's a series of free study visits to, let's say, Israel, Haifa and Tel Aviv, Estonia, Tallinn, and Luxembourg, University of Luxembourg. And each of those visits will take 2 or 3 days to complete. And 7 countries which are partners in the hubs, in the startup hub work package of the EURAXESS Hubs project, will recruit, each of them will recruit 1 researcher who will participate in the free study visits, or free, where each of them will participate in one of the study visits. So we are going to have at least, let's say, from 7 to 21 researchers participate in this pilot. And besides those researchers, we will also have some of the EURAXESS staff attending those study visits in order to, let's say, strengthen our own capacity to do something similar in our settings, in our environment. The researchers that are being recruited as we speak, because there is a public call and announcement published on EURAXESS portal about this, and there is a quite vibrant, let's say, promotional activity, as we can see on social media these days. The target groups are early stage researchers. So we are targeting, let's say, PhD students or young researchers with PhD who already have their own startup. So they already established they are already founders or co-founders. And most what were we aiming at is that they did not yet receive some significant seed funding. So they are still in the phase of independence, of bootstrapping their own product or service, or let's say getting some initial funding.
Thank you very much. It was inspiring. I hope our listeners will use all this information that we have already provided for them.
Thank you, Daria.
EURAXESS Smart Talks for Talents, your personal guide to research careers, innovation, and entrepreneurship.
Vaido Mikheim, who has more than 10 years in the startup ecosystem development sphere, took an active part in the recent EURAXESS Hubs startup tour in Estonia. Vaido pioneers Estonia deep tech startup ecosystem onwards as deep tech project lead at Startup Estonia.
As a lifelong sci-fi fan, Vaido trusts that the combination of human science and tech is the path to sustainable prosperity. For the last decade, Vaido lives and breathes the startup scene in Estonia. He's eager to talk about business incubators and accelerators and how to power the process of converting science to business. Vaido, first of all, thank you very much for joining us. As an active participant in the EURAXESS Hubs Startup Tour, how did the Estonian Startup Tour contribute to the participants? Tell us, please.
Thank you for inviting me, and good morning to everybody. I find the EURAXESS initiative highly interesting, and I think it's an absolutely necessary activity to broaden the horizons and perspectives of researchers and scientists in general. One thing that always can be done better is communication. So in order to bring this kind of from the beneath to surface, that there are multiple ways how to contribute, and the career paths are no longer in silos or predetermined paths, then I feel that this is something that the EURAXESS visitors in Estonia definitely saw, that there are multiple opportunities.
Please tell us a little about the Estonian startup ecosystem.
Yes, in general, Estonia is a pretty good place right now. That we have moved into the strong innovator category according to the European Innovation Scoreboard, and hopefully we are not leaving it anymore in future. And also, according to the Community Innovation Service, Estonia has ranked very highly in terms of innovation. So we have a blossoming startup ecosystem. Roughly 7-8 years ago, we had only a few hundred startups. The number has grown now more to 1,300. So it's a blossoming ecosystem. Of course, not everything is rosy, but at least the general direction is a positive one.
And talking about the general direction and what contributed to Estonia's high ranking on the scoreboard, as you said.
I think this question has many layers. One thing is that we have had all the elements that everybody has. So everybody has this opportunity that we have companies, we have active people, we have research and development institutions, among them strong universities. But if I would want to pick out one of them, one of the elements, then it's enthusiastic people who want to get things done. And in terms of, let's say, startup development or even new initiative development, then you need human resource, you need financial resource, also time is a resource, also ambition and focus are resources, that where you are going to put those and where you are going to set your goals. So, and it's a long road. It's not easy. You have to be like a river, you are chipping away the resistance slowly but surely. And you are working always within the university as well as outside the university. And it greatly helps if you get the top management on board. But at the same time, you have also initiatives on the grassroots level that one of the things that I would like to bring out that has worked really well in Estonia is that Estonian major universities, both University of Tartu and Tallinn University of Technology, have established proof of concept funds with universities' own funding. And this has brought to radar a lot of great initiatives which have commercialization potential.
Can you tell us, please, about unique success stories of scientists in Estonia who have moved from academia to entrepreneurship?
This is also a very good question. And I was coming here and listing through some of the businesses and some of the projects that I know, and it was a hard choice. And then I decided that I will not go and talk about the big boys or the famous ones, but maybe a little bit less famous ones, but still who are doing really well. And my first example comes already from like 20 years back when the company was established. The company's name is Positium, and they are in a mobile big data business. And if you can imagine, then 20 years ago, mobile wasn't a thing yet. So they were ahead of their time. The core founding team was 3 professors and 2 students. And the students who were back then students, they are now the company owners and leaders. So, and they were purely academic team, like blue sky research. Like there was, I don't know who would believe into the business potential of this team except by themselves. But they did believe, and now they are working not only in Estonia, and they are actually doing quite an interesting project also with Lithuania, but they have had long-term collaboration with Indonesia. They are working in Africa. They have done a pilot project with Brazil in South America. They are brought out as a exemplary example by United Nations and World Bank, and they are working with World Tourism Organization. So they are working with top global names in the mobile positioning or mobile big data industry.
Do you have some statistics or intuitive statistics about the success rate in comparison when we are talking about entrepreneurship and scientific entrepreneurship?
I would say that there are a few fundamental differences. First of all, usually the deep tech or the scientific entrepreneurship is more long-term, which means it requires more patient capital and it requires more of these resources and all of those resources that we talked earlier. But on the downside of it, or the other side of the coin, is that it also has more chances to die within this long period of time. Of course, the positive side is that once it becomes successful, it usually is far more successful than your, let's say, regular service, software as a service company. But on the other hand, I would also say that the researchers are equipped to deal with uncertainty and complexity, because science in its essence is a process of dealing with uncertainty and complexity, the same as with business. So in a way, the characteristics of a scientist and a business person are not so different. Yeah, one of the things that people don't appreciate or don't understand often about the scientific entrepreneurship is that if you're talking about the products or services based or originating from academia, that they have been long in development and they have already kind of a ready-made solution that I believe that everybody has a chance.
So, Vaido, thank you very much. It was really interesting. Thank you for listening to the EURAXESS Smart Talks podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode and it was useful for you. Do you want to hear more? Part 2 is waiting for you on the EURAXESS portal and on your podcast application. In the next episode, you will hear the inspiring success story of Nobel Prize winner Professor Dan Shechtman, who will share his tips and insights as an experienced mentor in entrepreneurship at the prestigious Israel Institute of Technology, the Technion. For more information on EURAXESS, visit the EURAXESS portal. You will find more episodes of the EURAXESS Smart Talks podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts.
This episode was prepared by hosts Daria Aksenova and Jovana Rangelovic, audio engineer Pavle Draškovic, outreach manager Dina Sameret, production manager Moria Riha, editors Iser Per and Miroslav Trejanovic.
This episode is published under the Creative Commons CC BY license.
Until next time.